I was really bought into the idea of decentralization. When you have companies that have more and more power over everybody else, it's not really good for society. It's not really good for these economies. The design of the United States, recognizes that you need checks and balances. If you want to have a thriving civilization, you need to have this sort of decentralization of power. Every wave of technology enables new things. We have now blockchain, we have Web3, and rather than purely just trying to rebuild the same social applications, it's like, what are the real problems in the world that need to be solved? And I think we should solve those.
We believe that the next wave of innovation is innovation in the area of social impact.
We want to try to bring awareness about the incarcerated.
A huge number of people are currently homeless simply because they could not get legal help.
A safe place where they can get set free.
There's no hack for human connection.
Codependency is an addiction.
Do not try to do this big thing at once. Start with a little.
When you're searching for the gold, you will get back so much more than you ever thought possible.
So what do you think? The ball's in your court.
Well, here we are, Yaniv, in the House of Web3. We just had an amazing event a couple of weeks ago, right? We did Innovate together. And I've been really looking forward to this opportunity to interview you. So I'm Ted Hahs, and I'm a social entrepreneur. And this is Yaniv. So tell us about yourself.
So I'm a tech entrepreneur. And I started the Graph back in 2017. It's a core Web3 infrastructure protocol. It's used by a lot of the projects and applications that are building on Ethereum and in blockchain, and now working on Geo and, using, these tools that we built to help make real change in the real world. So we're building tools for organization to help people organize knowledge and information in a transparent way, in a verifiable way on top of blockchains, and then using that to help local cities solve challenges that they have at a local level. So the one that, we're taking on and we're really dedicated to is homelessness in San Francisco.
Yeah. When I saw your motto as let's solve the world's greatest problems, I'm like, okay, if that's an offer, I'm on. Let's do it. Let's partner together.
Yeah. Every wave of technology enables new things. And when the new technology comes along, people generally try to start doing the same things they were doing before, just with the same technology. But really, technology enables new things. And so, we have now blockchain, we have Web3, and rather than purely just trying to rebuild the same social applications or, things that we were doing before, it's like, what are the real problems in the world that need to be solved? And there are plenty of problems in the world that are real problems. Right? It's not, it's an incremental sort of thing. They're real glaring problems. And I think we should solve those.
Yeah, and technology generally is, my philosophy is technology is neutral. It can be used for good or it can be used for bad. The Oppenheimer movie was a great reminder of that. Nuclear power can, create energy, and that's great. But obviously there's a very challenging side to that. So it's important that we have the true north and guide it so that we do the awesome stuff. Mm-hmm. So before we get more into the Graph and Geo browser, tell me about a bit of your backstory. Are you a native San Franciscan? Where you're from? How'd you get to that point?
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Both my parents are engineers.
Okay.
We moved to San Jose when I was 7 years old. And I got to kind of see the .com era.
You moved to San Jose from where?
From Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we moved to the States when I was less than a year old.
From where?
From Israel.
Okay.
Yeah. So, basically lived in the U.S. my whole life. But, parents are immigrants. I guess technically I was an immigrant. And kind of saw the internet developing in those early years, and went from playing on a PC as a kid before the internet to, plugging into dial-up and building websites, selling things on eBay, doing all of this stuff, even before PayPal, where you would send money orders over the mail. So that was kind of, my early beginnings playing around with this stuff.
So then you're into tech, and then how'd you get into Web3?
I started my first company in 2012.
Okay.
And, we built a, web application, and I got really passionate about the craft of building apps, and I got passionate about the problem of helping more people tell the computers what to do, right? Because obviously, more and more of the things that we do are coordinated either online or using computers, phones. And I didn't want it to be like a small group of people in Silicon Valley who were designing all of the software that everybody around the world, had to use. And so, how do we make it more accessible so that people, wherever they are, can make up their own rules, make up their own systems?
I love that.
And actually then design, their own systems. So that led me to developer tools. And so, the second company that I started was in that area of developer tools, and I spent a lot of time working in that space. But then I really got into Ethereum in 2017. And, Ethereum is a general purpose blockchain, so you can write applications on top of it. There were a bunch of experiments and things launching on Ethereum in 2017. So it was a very active time for the space. And I was really bought into the idea of decentralization because I had seen over the last tech wave that, when you have companies that have more and more power over everybody else, it's not really good for society. It's not really good for these economies. So I, was really bought into the idea that we need to decentralize power. We need to put more power into the hands of individuals.
That was the promise of the internet. But then social media, it has delivered to a certain degree. But then it's also delivered some of the biggest corporations, the biggest corporations humanity has ever had,
Yeah, that's right. And at a certain point, you can't build, civilization on top of that, right? On top of companies that are essentially like kingdoms, right? The CEOs of those companies have complete control. So then now we're back to kingdoms.
Yeah. The whole haves and have-nots, the lords and the serfs. Yeah,
that's right. So we're like a democratic nation, and even the design of the United States, recognizes that you need checks and balances, and you need to have decentralized systems, just like we have the federal level, state level, local level, and power gets pushed out to the edges. And you have, Congress, you have the executive, the judiciary, and with these checks and balances. So, if you want to have a thriving civilization, you need to have this sort of decentralization of power. Otherwise, if the king, turns bad, or the king's son, goes bad, then the entire, society suffers. And so we need decentralized systems of organization that we can have our economy and, all different markets and all the different ways where, people come together to cooperate, to coordinate, to work together, to do things together.
This is why I was so excited, so glad we could do Innovat together. And this is also why I was curious when you moved in here. I moved into the Bay Area, not from Wisconsin, but from Southern California in the desert, which might as well be another planet. We moved in early 97. So it was about the same time, I think. So I've been here 27 years, 28 years. Yeah. And all that you're talking about, I haven't been a technologist. In about the same time frame, I've been getting into more technology. But where I've been coming at is mobilizing people. I think the greatest technology is people, okay? Mobilizing them to address these issues, working primarily through the faith community, but really, if you want to have a holistic solution, you've got to get the whole community involved. So I just was, it's very interesting to me to see these same themes coming out from different perspectives. So continue on. So you're into decentralization, and you started your first company in 2012, and then the graph was your second company or your 20th or third.
Yeah,
okay.
well, and it's a protocol, so it's not even a company.
Okay.
Because it's a decentralized network.
Okay.
So there's not a single company there. But so Ethereum started really taking off in 2017, and we were bought into that idea. So we started playing around and trying to build a decentralized application. It's an application where there isn't a company that's controlling the rules and that's running the servers. And we found out that you basically couldn't really build a fully decentralized application at that time because the infrastructure wasn't really ready. There were missing pieces. And
They call those dApps, right?
Yeah, dApps, exactly. Decentralized applications. And so what we realized is one of the biggest missing pieces was that you needed indexing, which is, think of like a database, right? It's organizing knowledge and information so that you can efficiently retrieve what you're looking for. So like every modern application has some sort of database that is indexed, and you have pages or screens that can load quickly.
So for data to be searched, it has to be indexed, then it can be searched.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so that is what the graph does. It's an indexing protocol for Web3, and people call it the Google of blockchain. You know, Google is also like indexing the web, except the graph is indexing all of this data that's coming from other decentralized networks where the information is verifiable. So you can really track and see, where did this information come from, right? Who updated this thing? And so, it's not like, on the web today where you have to trust these large companies and they make decisions about like how things are ranked or, who's allowed to update something, and they kind of control all of that. This way, it's all open permissionless systems that are running on these decentralized networks, but now you have a way to index all of that, and so we can build really great applications on top of this fully decentralized infrastructure.
Wow. Okay. So that's the graph.
And that's the graph.
And the graph was not a company, but it was successful.
Yeah, it's used by tens of thousands of developers who are building on blockchains like Ethereum and others, and it's really kind of become backbone of Web3.
So it started on the Ethereum network. Is it limited to the Ethereum network now, or is?
No, it's on about 20 some different chains that it indexes.
How many chains are there?
It depends on how you count, but the number of chains are growing because now we have these what are called layer 2s.
Yeah.
Which are ways of scaling these blockchains, and you have application-specific chains. So, for some applications, you want to be on a shared chain with others. Some applications, you might want to run your own chain. So, there's going to be millions of chains in the future. And so with the graph, we want to index all of those chains.
Tell me about GeoBrowser. No.
Yeah, so Geo really does two things. So we call it a Web3 browser. It's also a knowledge graph app. And so the first thing we want to do with Geo, so let's start with maybe the knowledge graph portion, is we want to give individuals and communities tools to organize their knowledge and information, and then to help communities get to consensus on that knowledge and information. So, one of the things that, I've observed is that, with the internet, anybody can publish anything, on Twitter or on, whatever kind of social media. And that's really changed the landscape where it's hard for people to understand what they can trust.
Yeah.
Right? And, maybe the old institutions that regulated that, whether it's the newspapers, whether it's universities, governments, whatever it is, have almost like lost the ability to keep up with the rate of information and to really perform that role of, sifting through that and helping people.
Before it was, news was controlled by a few organizations, and if you were the LA Times and the New York Times, it was your brand that certified if it was credible or not. Mm-hmm. So if this was in the New York Times, then you could believe it. Now, Twitter came along and just blew that all up with its pluses and its minuses too.
That's right. And so, on the one hand, you can see these like citizen journalists that are doing incredible work and reporting on things before anybody else. And so there's like so much great content.
And it empowered them. Yeah.
And it's empowered people. On the other hand, it's hard to sift through it and know what's true.
Before, New York Times would hire, or whoever it was, would hire a bunch of journalists and they'd have foreign reporters and they'd pay them, and there was a lot of people on the ground. Now they can't afford that anymore. So now the main news is mainly commentary upon trusting that there's these people on the ground that are empowered, but then how do you verify if this is really a person or not, So.
That's right. And so that happens with news, but it also happens in like every industry, right? Where, you have lots of different perspectives, and we don't necessarily have tools for communities, for, industries, academic fields, for whatever the community is, to basically get to consensus. Right, it feels like more and more the world's become polarized. You have these like different perspectives, and somehow we need a way to kind of bring people back together, and so that's one of the things that we're doing with GA. So we give people tools to organize information, and they do that with a knowledge graph. So a knowledge graph is the most flexible way of representing information. So it's incredibly powerful. And so people can structure their knowledge and information in this, really powerful, flexible way. And then they can create these pages that are beautiful pages for any type of content. So, it could be a blog post, or it could be, a listing for a product, or it could be a resume, or it could be, a research paper, or, any sort of thing you can create beautiful pages for. And then communities can then vote on changes to, their kind of shared facts, their shared content, their shared, repository.
So in some ways, it will have a similar mechanism to Wikipedia, for example.
Yeah, there's similarities. So Wikipedia does have these editors, and then they have this reputation-weighted voting system. And it's interesting to note that Wikipedia really has done a phenomenal job. Right? It's actually not, by itself clear that this sort of reputation-weighted voting system would lead to good results. But really,
I remember way back in the day, people are like, Wikipedia is not really trustworthy. Encyclopedia Britannica is trustworthy. Now it's totally changed, and everyone says, Encyclopedia Britannica is never ever going to possibly be as thorough and as trustworthy as Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because many more people can contribute to it. And ultimately, if you want to try to arrive at truth, you want a system where a lot of people can participate, but you kind of can sift through, and you give more power to people who've demonstrated more ability and knowledge in a certain area, and you review each other's work. And over time, if you design that system correctly, you can kind of get towards truth. And so Wikipedia has done a great job, but it has a lot of limitations.
Well, yeah, for one is it's only encyclopedia knowledge. There's a ton of stuff you want to know, and Wikipedia is not, it's not even within their scope.
That's right. That's right. Most of the information on the internet is not on Wikipedia. You're using different websites. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Yelp, you're on, Twitter, you're on these different places, Amazon, right, for products and services. But it's all public knowledge and information.
Mm-hmm.
And so really we need better tools to organize our public knowledge and information of all types, and things that also change frequently, right? So not just encyclopedia style knowledge, but, just real-time information.
Best practices in every industry, yes. This encyclopedia knowledge represents a small fraction of all of human knowledge, and the goal is to eventually have all of human knowledge.
And information, right? Just so that, if there's goals that we're working towards as a society, we can all get on the same page on where we're at, what's happening on the ground, what needs improvement, and then, if we kind of have the same, shared set of facts and numbers and metrics that we're tracking, then that empowers people on the edges to form into teams and start contributing, and, so we can, be making things better as a society.
Yeah, I really admire that. And as I've told you before, I hope you succeed. I'm rooting for you. Well, I don't just hope you succeed. I want to help you succeed. This is, it's interesting. This is the biggest problem we need to solve. I think if we can bring people together, what we found, and we've been using technology, but never driving with that. Of course, you can't do anything without using technology, but trying to solve the biggest problems in a community by bringing the community together. And the magic happens when you can get people to agree and start working together. And it's interesting that then when you start doing this for a while and you see the power of when you can bring transparency to the system, see what's really happening, okay? And then align people's interests, or actually it's more about educating them to say, listen, all our interests are already aligned. We just have to understand that, like the homelessness, for example. Everyone's interests are already aligned. Nobody wants people sleeping on the streets. The business owners don't want it. The city doesn't want it. The governors don't want it. The homeowners don't want it. But they're all fighting. Okay. Well, you've got to see that their big goal is aligned, and then to work them together. So when you start thinking that way, then you realize, wow, the big real issue is how divided we are. Because that's the system failure that's not necessarily causing all the problems, but stopping us from solving them.
That's right. And so, really we need better systems for coordinating ourselves, right? And these are complex issues. Even if we want the same things, even if we all want to end homelessness, we're going to disagree on what the causes are, what the right solutions are, what our goals should be. And so we need better systems for wading through that. If you're operating under a certain set of facts and you're sure that those facts are right, but, I'm convinced that I've seen studies that say the opposite. And so, no, we've got to go a different way. And we're just talking past each other because we can't even agree on the basic facts. That's going to make things difficult.
Absolutely. And then you have what actually makes me, this is the weird way I'm wired. That actually encourages me because it's gotten so bad that I think now people are ready for a solution. People are arguing so bad. They are challenging facts so much. No one can agree on facts that it's actually, okay. It's just waiting for a solution.
That's right. So, what we'd like to see is, to start, empower each individual and each organization to be able to organize essentially their set of facts and their, goals, what they would like to see. So if we could empower, you, Ted, to basically, put in, here are my beliefs, here is what I think is true, and here's where I think we should go, right? And so now you can capture that as knowledge, right, as information, and it's captured in digital form. The organizations that you're a part of can do the same thing. They can say, okay, here are the policy proposals that we think we need to change. Here are the places we need to lean in more. We should be focused on these goals in this priority order. And so as an organization, now you can capture that as knowledge. And then as communities, we're a bunch of individuals and we're a bunch of organizations. And so with better voting systems, we can aggregate, our collective preferences, and we can start to sort through, and get to basically consensus on a shared set of facts and a shared, set of goals. Now, that alone isn't sufficient because you actually need a way to go through and resolve differences. And so we need to actually structure our arguments in a much better way. And, I think this is something where, in the past, we've really leaned heavily on debates. And I think that the culture of debates has really declined.
The problem to me with debates is the person who wins the debate is the one who's best at debating.
Right, exactly. And so it's not a perfect solution.
The whole purpose of the debate is finding truth. But now it's really about who's better at debating. So we need a different way, a better way of debating. Yes, I totally agree.
We say that, but at the same time, I think the style of debates that we've used to do in the past is significantly better than the quality of discourse that's happening today.
Oh.
So I think there was a time.
And now we don't even debate. We're not even in the same room.
Debating, right?
No, that's what, you listen to CNN, you listen to Fox News, and you realize, and well, you're probably like me, but I've found that in my circle of friends, I'm the exception of the guy who has relationships, deep relationships with all this diverse people. And whenever one person is speaking, like they'll have debates. They're not using the person on the other side. They're not trying to engage with them at all. That person is a prop for them to inflame their base.
That's right.
Because by inflaming their base, they get higher ratings, and that's what makes money.
Right. It's just a tribal, fights is what it is. It's not about trying to arrive.
Not even necessarily.
It's about
yes, it's
to
fights. It's
win for your tribe.
Win for your tribe, and to me, even which is more cynical, you're not even trying to win for your tribe who you're talking to. You're actually trying to exploit them for ratings. Really.
Yeah.
Exploit them for whatever you want to get. That's what it boils down to. Yeah. So I very much agree that the way we used to debate, at least we were debating.
At least we were debating
yes.
and trying to arrive at truth.
And listening and trying to convince the person across the way.
That's right. You start from the premise of neither one of us might be entirely right. And so maybe there's something I can learn from you, and maybe there's something you can learn from me. And we'll go through a civil process of, listening to each other's arguments and then responding with counter arguments and being flexible so that if your counter argument gets beat, then you shift towards the other person and vice versa. And so that's the process of debate that I feel like we used to do a much better job of, but that we're
definitely
not so
needed
much now. But even that, to your point, isn't perfect because, if we're going in real time.
It's a starting point, at least.
We're not actually going to be able to follow all of the threads, right? Like some of these threads are going to get dropped. And so, we'll get close.
I love that because right now there's 1,000 threads running through my mind and I have to choose one to follow.
Exactly. So that's the drawbacks of the live, conversational medium. But if you do this as data, right, as knowledge on the computer, so you have, here's a claim, here are the supporting arguments, here are the opposing arguments. And each of those arguments are themselves a claim. So you can have supporting arguments and opposing arguments.
So in some ways, it's like automating the whole process of peer review, which again is, I think the whole peer review paper thing is broken, but it's, at least it's, if something's peer reviewed, and so the idea is you throw an experiment out there to all your peers, and so that you're completely transparent so they can repeat it.
Yes.
And it's similar to that, only automating the process and making it not exclusive to academic.
Yeah, and so really it's a system by which we structure knowledge and information. We make it so that individuals and organizations can capture all of their knowledge and information, and then as communities, we can go through a process of converging through these voting systems and participating in a much more democratic process, but which allows us to eventually get to consensus on our knowledge.
This is really interesting. So if I understand, your background was kind of almost in a form of, well, maybe it wasn't crowdsourcing, but you said you did not want an exclusive group programming or influencing how programming and apps were built. You wanted to bring diverse voices in.
Yeah, to kind of democratize telling the computers what to do.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Dunning-Kruger?
Yes.
Okay. The whole Dunning-Kruger effect. It means basically the premise is so people who are experts in a field consistently underrate their level of expertise. But people who are incompetent in a field consistently overrate their level of expertise. And the reason for that is if you are incompetent in a field, you not only lack the knowledge to be competent in that field, you also lack the framework to rate whether someone's knowledgeable or not. So you overrate yourself. If you are competent in the field, like a scientist, a specialist, you know what it means to really be competent. Like, you know what it takes to, it doesn't matter how great a programmer you are, there's guys that are at a whole nother level than you. So that's your world, so you underrate yourself. That's always been super fascinating to me. And the flip side of that, it's like a blind spot. You and I are both experts in our own field. We would not know, we're not the best judge of what we're the best experts in. And we're also not the best judges of what we're not the best experts in. So someone can be an expert in a field, and I've seen this with leaders who are experts in an area, but then it's like there's a shadow of this and a blind spot where they absolutely lack any knowledge at all in this area, and they think they're really good at it, or at least better than they are. And it's, how do we solve this problem? It's very interesting.
Yeah, so, it comes down to breaking things up into different spaces, right? So, and, space can be an industry, an academic field, and then spaces can have subspaces. So you get into, more and more, areas of specialization. And so within each of those spaces, you have different set of essentially experts and participants who are participating in those spaces. So you may have a field of competency where you're really strong, but like you said, that's context dependent. Just because you're strong in this area doesn't mean that you're strong in that area. And so ultimately, again, this all comes down to ways of organizing our communities that we're part of, and having systems so that within those communities, we can get to consensus. And I do believe in empowering experts.
Absolutely.
I think we kind of live in a time where either people think that all that matters is credentials, and that basically if you have the right credentials, that automatically means that you're an expert. So you're a PhD at whatever school, and that means that you know everything. Or we just completely distrust all of the experts, and we're like, there's no such thing.
And neither side is right.
Experts.
There's a need for both.
Right. Well, so really, I think that, the truth is kind of neither, and that it's that, like, there is such a thing as knowledge, and it actually takes a lot of work to acquire knowledge. And
this is very, very, obviously I'm coming from more of a faith Christian background. You don't have to know me that long for that to come out. But that's very, very biblical, because throughout Jesus continually said, by my fruit you shall know me. It's like, my beliefs, don't take them as dogma. Look at the results of them. I think this is greatly missed in the faith community. Like, wow, Jesus is actually saying that test everything I'm saying to you by how it bears fruit. What are the results of it? Data driven, so the modern term for that is be data driven, be results oriented. Can you make the connection? Can you test this? Can you test this hypothesis?
Right. And so you shouldn't take anybody just on faith, right, based on their credentials. Exactly. So it's this kind of scientific method, verify. But ultimately, if somebody, let's say, there's lots of ways to evaluate people's knowledge in a certain area, right? If they make predictions, how often do they turn out to be true?
Yes, that's why.
How do other experts, feel about them? Because experts tend to be better at identifying other experts in their field.
Well, it's the scientific method, but it's seeing the scientific method. Like, to me, the scientific method was not invented when it was just codified. It's really how people have obtained knowledge forever. That's why way pre-science, you have the pyramids, which are greater. We haven't even figured out how they accomplished this yet, okay? And that was pre-science. But the scientific method is it internally consistent? Okay, does it contradict itself? And then does it make predictions? And then, okay, so if it doesn't make any predictions, it might be truth, but it's kind of useless, because it's just rephrasing what we already knew. But if it makes predictions of something we didn't know, and then of course test those predictions, okay? And it has to line up with all three of those, and then it's verified.
Yeah, and so I do think that there is such a thing as truth and knowledge, and that knowledge takes a lot of effort over a prolonged period of time to attain. And some people have done that work and have natural abilities more than others, and then some people haven't done the work, or they're talented in some other areas. And so ultimately, if we want to have a society that works well, we need to give more power to the people who have acquired that expertise in the different areas. And that's the basic concept of meritocracy. And so, I think some combination of democracy and meritocracy, we do want everybody to be able to participate.
Everyone gets an opportunity. You get voted up by you're good at that, you know?
Exactly. And And so these are the sorts of systems that, we're working on building. We do want everyone to be part of shaping those systems. So, we're having lots of events where people can come and they can participate. And, we're breaking out into these decentralized organizations or these DAOs. And so there's just so many ways for people to get involved. And so, it's very much, active participation, community involvement, grassroots, and together we'll be able to, evolve these systems and make them work for us.
I love it. Yeah, it's very interesting, and I love the framework that you've developed. Are you, like we talk about, obviously when we're, like today, we were talking about the We Heart, San Francisco, how it takes a community. You need a support community, and whether that's for a homeless person, getting them out of the homelessness, it requires a community to come around them. But also, like, the secret to your success, the secret to my success, it's not about me and you, it's about our family, it's about the community we've had around us, the relationships we've had. So to succeed, you need a community. We all need to help each other. And I think, like, one of the things that I was been meditating on recently, I heard Tim Ferriss podcast. And, we all know, in every business journal will talk, every business guru will talk about the support community to help you build your network to succeed. And he was saying the equally important is a challenge network. And you need people around you that are going to challenge what you're saying to open up your eyes to these blind spots. What I love of what you're building is basically automating all this and creating a system, a digital system where it can do it, and we can be that support community for those who don't have it, but also for the knowledge base, we also can provide the challenge community, and that together we find this truth, we have a foundation to build upon, and we work together to solve the world's biggest challenges.
That's right. You got it.
So you want to talk any about your go-to-market strategy and when you're launching and call to action at all?
Not sure when this is going to be released, but very soon we're going to be opening things up for new editors. So right now we've been working with an initial set of editors, organizing content on Geo, and we're organizing everything from health to philosophy to travel, spirituality, U.S. politics, defense and international relations. So lots of interesting different areas that, the initial set of editors have been organizing. And very soon we're going to be opening it up for new editors. So you can create your own personal space where you can publish your own content. You'll be able to request to join an existing public space as an editor, or even create, your own public space and invite other people to join as editors, where then you have a governance process. Initially, there's going to be a default governance process that people can use, and over time, we're going to try to make that more customizable. But all of that is going to be, ready to grow really soon. So I'd say just keep an eye out for that, and if it's already out by the time you see this, give it a try.
I love also the fact that you're not building technology. Everyone says this, few actually do it. You're not building technology in a technological void to be technology. You're embedding it in your actions to solve real world problems. I have been preaching that. And so it was very refreshing to see someone who's modeling that. So you're actually getting your hands dirty. You're not just meeting here with the community to talk about solving homelessness. You guys are all going to the Tenderloin and other places and engaging with that community and doing the little bit you can to know them, and be part of that solution there. And I love the fact that it's embedded in the whole real world, that you're getting service providers here and engaging so people can come to the We Heart San Francisco lunch. We also did the Innovate event, which is where the community can come and, not just be inspired, but make commitments to go out and do it. We're planning more of those so that people can get on GeoBrowser, but they can also get out in the streets and make a difference.
That's right. So, Yeah, I was speaking to a little bit of like the global kind of content that's in there. But yeah, so, we're, spending a lot of time really focusing on this issue of homelessness in San Francisco and in the Bay Area. And there's a lot that we're doing there. So we meet every Wednesday at noon here at House of Web3, and it's an open meeting. So people can come and we have discussions around learning about the work that different people are doing and inviting people to participate in different ways and talking about policy discussions and lots of interesting talks. We're spawning a set of DAOs, these decentralized organizations to handle different parts of, the problem. So we have, a DAO for street outreach. We have a DAO for transitional housing, for workforce development, for recovery to help people get clean and stay clean, and a DAO for mentorship, right, to connect people to someone who's really going to take an interest in you long term and help you navigate through the process. So people can join these DAOs. They meet regularly, and all of this stuff is still pretty early stage, but people can participate in, setting these systems up and evolving them. And eventually, right, the goal with each of these DAOs is really to become a network of the different service providers and of the different individuals who want to, provide these services and to do it in a transparent, accountable way, in a way that interops together. So ultimately, I think there's a lot of organizations out there that are already doing really great work. Yep. And then there are a lot of, individuals who would help participate if it was easy enough for them to do it. And so, using this public infrastructure, we can, create this interoperability to connect all of this amazing work that's happening and empower people to really address this issue. And, I really believe that we can end homelessness in San Francisco.
I believe we can too.
To take this current state of affairs as a given, we can work on the policies. We can, put resources where they need to go, and ultimately, we can help everyone who's in our communities.
I think we can have in the future, this is my dream with my grandkids or great grandkids, that there's going to be classes on homelessness, the same way that we learn about the Great Depression. And we're going to have to tell them about the very difficult season that humanity went through, but we came through. And we're going to have to educate them. They go, what was homelessness? I mean, people used to camp. They didn't have places to live. And yeah, I believe we can. And here's a great quote to end on. Abraham Lincoln said, the greatest way to predict the future is to make it happen. So that's right. The future I predict.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.